some places seem to have more than their fair share of strange events. In northern England, the Pennines have been the setting for a number of unusual sightings and unexplained encounters over the years. On the other side of the world, quiet neighbourhoods in the United States have had their own share of mysterious reports. The following two accounts, one from a small town in West Yorkshire and another from the woods of Indiana, tell the stories of people who say they experienced something they could not explain. P.C. Allen Godfrey. The Pennines are a mountain range in northern England, and situated in the Pennines is a market town called Todmorden. Todmorden sits in the upper Calder Valley in Calderdale, West Yorkshire, England. For many years, the hills surrounding it had mysterious events of an extraterrestrial nature. One famous story took place on June 11th, 1980, when Zygmunt Adamski, a 56-year-old miner, went missing in unusual circumstances from his home on Thornfield Crescent, Tingley, Yorkshire. His body was found a few days later in Todmorden, about 30 miles from his home, with a mysterious yellow or green substance on his neck that couldn't be identified despite a thorough investigation by British forensic and pathology experts. However, on November 28, 1980, another strange event took place in the same region of England when Police Constable Allen Godfrey had been investigating the death of Adamski on June 11th, and it just so happens that P.C. Godfrey had been the first on the scene. It was 6 months after Adamski's death when P.C. Godfrey had his own strange experience while investigating stray cattle. P.C. Godfrey was driving down Burnley Road when he saw what he thought was a bus that had skewed across the road. As he got closer, he saw a white dome-shaped object in front of him that appeared to be spinning. It looked about 20 feet wide and was hovering above the ground. He attempted to call his station but found his radio was dead and his car had stalled and he couldn't get it to start again. Suddenly, a flash of light blinded him, causing him to black out, and when he eventually came to his senses about 20 minutes later, he was now about hundreds yards away from his original location with no memory of what had happened to him. Although P.C. Godfrey survived his ordeal, like Adamski, he had unexplained burns on his body. Was the death of Zygmunt Adamski a failed abduction? When P.C. Godfrey eventually returned to the station, he was teased by his colleagues and he decided not to make an official report about the incident. But he was certain about what had happened to him. Later that day, he had a sudden flashback where he recalled that just before the object had disappeared, he heard a voice in his head say, "You should not be seeing this. This is not for your eyes." When he arrived at work the following day, he found that an anonymous man had reported seeing a UFO. What he described was similar to what P.C. Godfrey had witnessed, where he saw an unidentified object hovering above the ground. He then decided to file a report, but what Godfrey had seen was further vindicated when 3 other policemen who had been searching the moors for stolen motorbikes had witnessed a similar object 20 minutes before Godfrey had seen it. After contacting the station to report what they had seen, they again spotted the UFO which was travelling towards Todmorden. They were certain that it was not a helicopter or plane, and even checked Leeds and Bradford Airport for further verification. Yet another police officer had also witnessed a strange object in the sky. With so many credible witnesses, Allen Godfrey felt that he had not imagined everything. It was at this stage that he realised he had injured his foot, and his new boots had been damaged in such a way they looked as if they had been dragged along the ground. But he could not remember anything like that happening to him. He knew that all this seemed to have happened after the incident. In 1981, Allen Godfrey underwent 3 hypnosis sessions with a Dr. Joseph Jaffe, where he remembered getting out of the car and seeing a light appear under a UFO. He quickly jumped back into the car in an attempt to drive away, but the car would not start. Throughout the session, Godfrey had been connected to an electrocardiogram machine, and at one point it showed his heartbeat rocketing upwards, and Dr. Jaffe had a hard time trying to calm him down. After the session resumed, Godfrey then went on to describe being blinded by a light that had suddenly taken hold of him, and he now felt himself floating and being taken aboard a craft. He suddenly found himself inside a room, and could see a table as well as a man wearing a white sheet with a skull cap. The man looked about 6 feet tall with a beard and a long, thin nose. For some reason, he seemed to know that the man's name was Joseph. The man was surrounded by 8 small metallic-looking figures who looked about 3 foot 6 inches tall with heads like a lamp, and their eyes resembled single vertical lines. He did not like it when they touched him, but the bearded man told him telepathically not to be afraid and that the metallic robots were his. What was even more strange was he could see a big black dog in the corner. The man led Godfrey to a table that had a bright light, and he received another telepathic message that said, "This is not for your eyes," and to get onto the table. He felt a pain in his head, which the man quickly eased. The robots then took off his boot and examined his foot. Bracelets were then put onto his right wrist and left ankle before being plugged into a machine. He then smelt a sickly odour and saw flashing lights. He said it was a similar sensation when some people experience when they underwent a general anaesthetic. Then he saw details of his past life, and his mind was probed by a series of questions. Godfrey sensed that the man was telling him that he'd met him before, and Godfrey suddenly had vivid childhood memories of seeing a huge ball of light in his bedroom. After his hypnosis session, the doctor replayed the tape, and Godfrey was at a loss to explain them. Dr. Jaff concluded that something very unusual had happened to Alan Godfrey, who would have had no reason to make everything up. After his hypnosis session, his abduction explained the 20 minutes of lost time he had had. Before his alien encounter, Alan Godfrey was sterile and had been unable to father any more children due to a fight where he was kicked in the groin. But following his alien encounter, his wife saw a bright flash of light before going to bed one night, and a short time later she found she was pregnant. The whole experience changed Godfrey's life. After his alleged abduction, the West Yorkshire Police claimed he was mentally unfit for duty and fired him from the police force. Godfrey later self-published a book where he claims he was pushed out of the police force by men in black who tried to keep him from talking to the media. 40 years later, photojournalist Rick Moran wrote a book titled Chance Encounters in the Valley of Lights. The town of Todmorden has been described as the UFO capital of the UK, but what was attracting UFOs to the Pennines? Copley Woods. In July 1983, Indianapolis resident Debbie Jordan was at home when the dogs began barking frantically. Stepping outside, she saw a bright light hovering above the nearby woods. The air felt charged and a strange humming sound filled the night. Jordan reported feeling paralysed as the light intensified. She recalled being lifted into the air and transported into a brightly lit metallic room. Humanoid beings with large black eyes examined her, touching her head and arms while communicating telepathically. She remembered a tall, thin figure approaching with a device that emitted flashes of light. The beings seemed to focus on her abdomen, causing discomfort but no lasting pain. Jordan had a sense that they were taking something from her, but could not explain what. Her next memory was standing outside in the yard again, disoriented, with the light gone. Hours had passed. The grass where she'd been standing was flattened in a perfect circle, and a strange powdery residue coated the plants. In the days after, Jordan suffered nosebleeds, fatigue, and vivid dreams of the beings. When hypnotically regressed years later, she recalled multiple similar encounters stretching back to childhood. The Copley Woods case remains unexplained, and Jordan has continued to speak publicly about her experience.